Johnny Depp, Narcissist or Empath, Part 18. We get straight back to the Rolling Stone interview, which provides us with more revelations and disclosures back in 2018 about Johnny Depp and in particular the ongoing financial disputes that he was experiencing with the management group. The interviewer writes, "Back in London, I'm sitting with Waldman, going over the Jabberwocky of the case for a few hours, when Depp emerges after sunset. I never saw him in daylight. Dressed in his pirate homeless attire, tattered jeans and oversized white shirt festooned with a series of handkerchiefs, his mood is equal parts maudlin and swagger. There are a few things Depp insists TMG got wrong. For example, the $30,000 a month the Mandells claim he spent on wine. It's insulting to say that I spent $30,000 on wine, says Depp, because it was far more. Exaggeration, truth, arrogance, potential grandiosity. Depp says they got the Hunter S. Thompson Cannon story wrong too. By the way, it was not $3 million to shoot Hunter into the fucking sky, says Depp. It was $5 million. Depp elaborates. He says the cost of the rocket launch increased when he decided he wanted Thompson's arc to be at least 1 foot higher than the Statue of Liberty's 151-foot height. That part could be true, but I checked around, says the interviewer, about the price tag, and Depp seemed to be bullshitting. Accordingly, in the circumstances, exaggeration and telling of lie. Multiple reports said that the cannon stunt did cost $3 million, but perhaps Depp wanted the number to be even bigger, taking a cue from Thompson, who can never resist taking a good true story and juicing it up with imaginary details. It doesn't take a psychiatrist to figure out that Depp had been greatly influenced by Brando and Thompson, two father figures who did not give a fuck about what the world thought about them. Does this demonstrate mirroring on his part? Depp and Brando had been friends since the 1995 film Don Juan DeMarco, when Depp bought an island in the Bahamas. It was Brando, owning his own Tahitian island, who advised him to make sure his house is above sea level. His connection to Thompson was more visceral, spanning lewds and literature. Depp had been a fan of the Gonzo journalist for years and courted friendship as he played Thompson in Terry Gilliam's 1990 adaptation of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. During the filming and afterward, the two became drug-taking companions. Except for Christie, Depp could not count on his actual family for guidance. They seemed at the core of many of his financial fiascos. Over some tuna-fish and corn sandwiches, Depp's favourite, he talks of the money pit that Betty Sue's farm in Lexington had become. Soon after its purchase, he tells me, Depp's other sister and her husband moved in and were hired to manage the property. Eventually their son joined the payroll. Are these people taking advantage of Depp's generosity, or is it simply the case that he utilises his financial wealth to control people by putting them on the payroll through acts of grandiosity and generosity in order to manage a facade and to control them? Meanwhile, Depp was supporting his ex-partner Vanessa Paradis and their two children, Jack and Lily Rose, in their own French villa that Depp bought for them. According to Depp, after years of keeping him in the dark, Mandel communicated to him that the Kentucky branch of the family's spending was out of control. So Depp asked him to send a file with all their expenses. He was in makeup on a Pirates of the Caribbean movie when the file arrived, and he asked his assistant to print it. His assistant said he couldn't do it. It's over 200 pages, the assistant said. Depp called Mandel and asked him what the hell was going on. My sister was buying handbags for my mum, who was bedridden, Depp recalls. Jewelry, fucking this, that, everything. Is this another person taking Johnny Depp for a ride, taking advantage of his kind and generous nature? In 2013, Depp was told that Betty Sue had terminal cancer. He moved her up to Los Angeles and rented her a $30,000 a month house that was far enough away from his spread that they could coexist. Somehow, Betty Sue got better with treatment, and Depp informed the Mandells that the lease should be ended, and Betty Sue should head back to Kentucky. But the house kept running up $30,000 a month charges, because according to Depp, the Mandells forgot to cancel the lease. TMG says that Mandel simply renegotiated the house's lease as directed, which required giving the landlord 4 months' notice. Again, this exhibits generosity towards his mother, somebody who had abused him repeatedly. Of course, he keeps her at arm's length, as she's kept far enough away from his spread so that they could coexist. Is he asserting control over his mother in doing this, or is this another exhibition, perhaps, of emotional empathy towards somebody who didn't deserve it? Betty Sue died in 2016. The interviewer asked Depp if he's sold her farm. He tells me his family still lives there. Their thinking is that I'm going to take care of them forever and that the farm is now theirs, he says. I didn't make that promise. I then asked what seems like a logical question. Why didn't Depp just pick up the phone and read his family the Riot Act and cut off their credit cards? Depp furrows his brow and looks confused. He's convinced that was TMG's job. That's why I'm paying them. Of course, we don't know the specifics of the retainer, but that does seem like a fair answer, that if he has appointed the management group to manage his finances, that was something they would take care of. Ironically, the Mandells argue that nothing would have made Joe Mandel happier than cutting up the Depp's family credit cards, but Johnny apparently could not pull the trigger. Back at my hotel, the interviewer states that he looks at Depp's court filings. Among the pile of charges against the Mandells, there is no mention of the Kentucky farm. Is this another lie by Depp, or simply an omission? Or is it the case that it's not included because the story is, as the Mandells have stated, and not as Depp has suggested? Depp's case largely centres on the claim that he was kept clueless until it was too late, despite the fact that beside himself, the only person who had the power to authorise new expenditures was his sister Christie. The Mandells have produced a series of emails and notes that undermine Depp's argument. In 2008, Depp was intent on purchasing a house adjacent to his property in the Hollywood Hills. Mandel suggested it wasn't a great time to buy the house, but it could happen if other cuts were made. Depp wrote back, "We must buy this house." Arrogance, sense of entitlement, ordering around. Mandel emailed Depp again, asking him to watch his holiday spending. Depp emailed back on December the 7th, 2009. "Dear Joel, firstly, thank you for dealing and getting me through. Secondly, I'm doing my very best on holiday spending, but there is only so much I can do, as I need to give my kiddies and family as good as Christmas as possible. Emotional empathy or the maintenance of facade for grandiosity. Obviously within reason. But regarding the plane situation, I don't have all that many options at the moment. A commercial flight with paparazzis in tow would be a fucking nightmare of monumental proportions. What else can I do? You want me to sell some art? I will. You want me to sell something else? Sure. What?" Depp was stubborn, even when his friends tried to save him from himself. In 2010, he started Unison Records, his own label, but by 2014, it had lost between $4 and $5 million. His friend, Bruce Witkin, the label's president, apologised for the losses and suggested it was time to call it quits, addressing Depp by the name Baha. Depp wrote back to Boozy, also known as Witkin, telling him to keep going and that it took the world 20 years to catch up to his genius. The label was finally closed a year later. Sense of entitlement, abrogation of responsibility once again, perhaps. The Come to Jesus meeting was actually the beginning of the end. Though, the relationship teetered on precariously for 3 more years. According to the countersuit in 2015, Mandel made another plea to Depp about his dire circumstances, and Depp responded by text, "I'm ready to face the music in whatever way I must. I know there's a way to dig ourselves out of this hole, and I'm bound and determined to do it." Magical thinking? Things didn't get better. In August 2015, Mandel told Depp's staff that there had to be new rules on controlling expenses on travel, car, rental, and town car services. Later that year, Mandel and his other advisors told Depp he had to make 2 movies and sell Hamu, his Saint-Tropez estate, and he had to do it quickly, in order to cover millions in loans he'd taken out to cover previous debts. The message got the actors' attention. Depp responded by asking Mandel if he was broke. Depp seemed to come around. He initially agreed on selling Hamu, but then reneged after receiving a crying phone call from his daughter, Lily Rowles, begging him not to sell her child at home. Is this as a consequence of genuine emotional empathy for his daughter in not wanting to sell it, despite it being the logical thing to do? A conflicted Depp took his frustrations out on Mandel. "Listen, you and I are going to have a fucking sit down, and you're going to have to explain this shit to me, because I don't appreciate a call from you in the 11th hour, Depp recalls telling Mandel. "If you're going to call me in the 3rd hour. It wasn't out of the ordinary for Depp to send an apologetic text or email a few hours after an outburst. Is this facade management and having dealt with matters, then responding in a benign way to assert control? Or is this an individual who was quick to lose his temper, but thereafter realised the error of his ways after further consideration, perhaps suggesting a more narcissistic but not narcissist approach to his behaviours? Depp vacillated about Hamill, and the property was briefly listed for $13 million and then jumped up to $27 million, a sign that Depp was in no hurry to unload it. He broke promises to make the house available for potential buyers. Around the same time, he bought $108,000 in suits while on a trip to Singapore, according to communication from someone who was there. This continues to paint a picture of serious financial abrogation of responsibility, and also a failure to listen to advice. Whilst he alleges that there was mismanagement by TMG, the journalist has, of course, unearthed various emails and texts which support TMG's position, which suggests that Depp was his own worst enemy. Was this as a consequence of the various disorders that we know that suffered from, ADHD in particular, or was this alongside his narcissism at work, whereby he wouldn't take responsibility, he would blame other people, he would deny that he was at fault, that he would break promises, that he would tell lies? You, again, can make the determination. In part 9, we examine a final part of the information that comes from the Rolling Stone interview. Join me in part 19.